Chapter 50. Bette Midler used to say that bad sex was just two people who didn't fit together. That being the case, I can only imagine that Keith Kellen and I fit together like Cinderella's Tootsie and that famous Waterford wedgie. We were stark raving cuckoo about each other's body. Keith, during a quick breather and a mouth marathon of kissing, would whisper in a voice similar to the one Jennifer Jones used in the Song of Bernadette to describe her vision of the Holy Mother in the village refuge dump. God, you have the best lips. Or I'd be standing at the stove, turning bacon strips, and he'd walk up behind me, grab a couple of handfuls of my behind, and say, God, you have the best ass. Why can't a woman have an ass like this? For my part, I loved every square inch of Keith Keller, and I made that statement confident that during the time I lived with Keith, I managed to eyeball, finger, nuzzle, and tongue him in his absolute entirety at least once over. I loved Keith, both with my heart and most other parts of my anatomy, from the half-dollar sized callus that formed on the ball of each of his big, high-arched feet, to the spot at the crown of his head where his baby-fine hair was thinning like it was the crowd at a movie house and some schmuck had just yelled fire. I love Keith's Mr. America biceps and his incredibly bowed legs. Standing with his feet together, he'd look like the Arc de Triomphe, and he'd never even been on a horse. I loved his nipples, each as ruddy and tender-looking as a little wound, and as sensitive as the tenor in a small-town opera company. I loved the birthmark on his right side of his pelvis, pinkish-brown and shaped like the state of North Dakota, staining Keith's untanned skin like a gravy spill on Clara's white linen tablecloth. I loved the smooth, breathy sound of Keith's voice and the sourdough bread smell of his crotch. I loved Keith's dick to the point of religion. I made up names for it like a primitive tribe might name its god over and over. The hooded stranger, the red-headed cyclops of love, Snidrel. I found adorable the little blue-green vein that traversed the dorsal side of Keith's great dork like an erratic highway on a tubular map of New Mexico. I marveled at the way the big thing swerved decidedly to the right, like much of the American voting populace during the summer of '79, as the Carter administration could be heard gasping its last, as it grew hard at the sight of me. I developed a relationship with Keith's penis as an entity quite separate from Keith himself. I petted, fondled, and kissed it like a newborn puppy, played with it like the Wham-O Toy Company's latest answer to the hula hoop, devoured it like America devouring Big Macs. It was indeed a meal in itself. Opened my back door and invited it in gladly, like your next-door neighbor come to return that $5 he borrowed last spring. Keith liked to talk during lovemaking. Me, I'm a moaner, a groaner, a hummer, as if well-versed in the tune to the Song of Solomon, but weak on the words. Keith was a talker, a cheerleader at the Super Bowl of love, even as he played the game. He called me lover while we made love. There are nights, even now, when I'm able to keep myself warm by wrapping tight around me memories of Keith, his big legs over my shoulders, his face a Renaissance rendering of a saint in rapture, Sebastian sans arrows, or, rather, pierced by just one, his slightly parted lips whispering a love litany. Oh yes, lover, oh please, lover, it feels so good, lover. There are nights, too, when I'll wake up very much alone, very much erect, from a dream I have instantly lost without a trace upon waking, and smell Keith's smell in my bed, feel the touch of his fingers on my skin, and it makes me shiver. If anyone had tried to convince me that a man, any man, especially a man who, before meeting me, had never even heard of Bo Diddley, could leave that sticky a trail of footprints across the kitchen floor of anyone's mind, let alone my own, I would have thought them somewhat over-concerned with sex, at least. But Keith Keller left me so marked. God damn him, and every other banker that ever lived.